I 29 work in high-frequency trading. My entire career is built on risk assessment, spotting bad investments, and knowing exactly when to cut my losses before they bankrupt me. I'm a guy who values logic, clear boundaries, and a drama-free home. My ex-girlfriend, let's call her Sarah, was unfortunately the worst investment I ever made. We had been dating for 6 months and living together for about 4, though I use that term loosely. She refused to put her name on any bills or the lease because she didn't want to mess up the health insurance plan she was still on under her parents. She thought she was being clever, keeping a foot out the door while living rent-free in my downtown apartment. That little legal loophole she insisted on ended up being the rope she hung herself with. To give you some background on Sarah, she was the type of person who thought the world owed her a lifestyle she couldn't afford. She worked as a coordinator for a boutique charity foundation that prided itself on family values, but her personal values were mostly about appearances. She had this group of friends I called the echo chamber, single women who validated each other's worst impulses and convinced one another that men were just accessories to fund their fun. I tried to ignore it, thinking she was different when we were alone. I was wrong. It all blew up on a Friday night. I had just come off a 60-hour work week. My eyes were burning from staring at monitors, and all I wanted was to order some Thai food, crack open a beer, and watch a documentary. I walked into the living room and saw her. She wasn't wearing the sweatpants usually reserved for our movie nights. She was wearing a red dress that was less a garment and more of a suggestion, backless and cut dangerously high. She was applying lipstick in a hallway mirror, checking her reflection with a vanity that made my stomach turn. I set my keys on the counter and asked where she was going. The air in the apartment shifted instantly. She didn't even look at me at first. She just said, "Out." I asked her what she meant, reminding her we had plans. She finally turned around, eyes glazed over with a mix of excitement and disdain, and told me I had plans to be boring. She said she was going to a club called Element with the girls. Now, Element is a spot downtown known for overpriced cocktails and guys who lease luxury cars they can't afford to impress girls who don't know any better. It's a meat market. I kept my voice level and told her it was 10 p.m., and I wasn't comfortable with her going to that kind of club without me, especially dressed like that. I told her it felt disrespectful to us. She laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound. She walked past me, grabbing her clutch, and dropped the line that ended our relationship. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm going clubbing with guys. You can't stop me. We aren't married." She stood at the door, hand on the handle, a smirk playing on her lips. She felt powerful. She thought she held the only vote that mattered because she had the beauty and I had the desire to keep her. She was banking on my fear of losing her. I asked her if that was her final answer. I asked, "We aren't married, so I have no say?" She scoffed, said exactly, and told me not to wait up. Then she walked out and slammed the door. The second the latch clicked, I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I didn't blow up her phone. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a box of heavy-duty trash bags, and walked into the bedroom. See, since she had refused to officially change her address to my place to keep her dependent status for her parents' benefits, she had very little legal footing here. In the eyes of the state of Texas, she was a guest who had overstayed her welcome. I wasn't evicting a tenant. I was removing a trespasser's property. I packed everything with the efficiency of a crime scene cleaner. I cleared the bathroom counter of her chaotic sprawl of makeup. I stripped the closet of her clothes, leaving the hangers rattling empty. I took the shoe boxes, the jewelry I had bought her, and her laptop. Within 45 minutes, her existence in my apartment was reduced to 4 black trash bags and 2 suitcases. I carried them to the hallway outside my front door and set them neatly against the wall. Then I went back inside, engaged the deadbolt, and put the security chain on. But I didn't stop there. I knew how she operated. She would come back drunk, loud, and entitled. I logged into my smart home hub and disabled her unique entry code. Then I sat on the couch, opened that beer I wanted, and waited. At 3:14 a.m., my phone lit up with a notification from the doorbell camera. She was there. Her hair was frizzy from humidity. Her makeup was smeared, and she was leaning heavily against the doorframe. She looked down and saw the bags. She kicked one, confused. Then she recognized her Louis Vuitton suitcase. The realization hit her in slow motion. She started pounding on the door. I watched the feed on my phone. I didn't move. She started screaming, slurring her words, yelling for me to open the door and saying it wasn't funny. She started kicking the door, screaming, "I live here. You can't do this." That's when I sent the text. I watched on the camera as she fished her phone out of her clutch, the screen illuminating her furious, tear-stained face. I texted, "Now you're not dating either. Enjoy the streets." She read it. Her jaw dropped. She screamed a string of obscenities that would make a sailor blush. And then she did exactly what I expected an entitled brat to do. She called the police. I sat there, sipping my beer, watching the flashing blue lights reflect off my living room ceiling 10 minutes later. I had my lease, with only my name on it, and a copy of her driver's license, which still listed her parents' address, sitting on the coffee table. The game had just begun, and she had no idea she was playing against the house. When the pounding on the door changed from the rhythmic thud of a drunk girl's fist to the authoritative knock of law enforcement, I stood up. I straightened my shirt and opened the door. 2 officers stood there. Sarah was behind them, shivering in the cool night air, mascara running down her cheeks, pointing a manicured finger at me. She screamed that I had kicked her out illegally and stolen her stuff. The older officer looked tired. He told me this young lady claimed she lived there and I had locked her out. I stayed calm. I stepped aside to show the empty, pristine apartment behind me. I told him she didn't live there. I explained she was a guest who became belligerent earlier that night. I said she left of her own accord to go clubbing, and I simply packed her personal belongings to facilitate her departure. As our relationship had ended, she started wailing that she had clothes there and slept there every night. I handed the officer the paperwork. I showed him her ID copy and a printout of a text message from 2 weeks prior where she explicitly stated, "I'm not changing my address. I don't want to lose my dad's insurance, so I technically still live at home, LOL." I used my corporate voice and explained that she maintained legal residence at her parents' house in the suburbs. She wasn't on the lease, paid no utilities, and was a guest. I cited the penal code regarding criminal trespass, stating I was revoking her consent to be on the property. The officer looked at the ID, then at the text, then at her. He asked her if that was her address on the ID. She stammered, saying yes, but that I said she didn't have to be on the lease. The officer sighed and told her that if she didn't have established residency, and by her own admission via text, she avoided establishing it. This was a civil dispute. He told her I had revoked her guest privileges, and she needed to take her bags and leave. Her face went pale. The weaponization of the legal system had backfired. She asked where she was supposed to go, and the officer told her that wasn't a police matter. He warned her not to bang on the door again, or they would return for a disturbance of the peace. I closed the door. I heard her sobbing in the hallway, dragging her suitcases to the elevator. I felt a cold, hard satisfaction. But I knew her. This wasn't over. Entitlement is a disease that doesn't accept no as a cure. It views it as a challenge. The next morning, the digital assault began. I woke up to my phone vibrating off the nightstand. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, my notifications were a blur. She had posted a video. In it, she was crying in her car, spinning a narrative so twisted it made me dizzy. She claimed I was abusive, that I had isolated her, and that I threw her out because she refused to do something sexual, a complete fabrication. She left out the club, the guys, and the "we aren't married" comment. She called me a monster to her 12,000 followers. My inbox was filled with threats from white knights and orbiters, guys who hovered around her hoping for a crumb of attention. I didn't panic. I didn't comment. I called my lawyer, who told me to ignore the noise unless she served me, but to document everything. I spent the day screenshotting her lies. But as I was going through the apartment, making sure I hadn't missed any of her things, I found something that changed everything. She had been so eager to go out the night before. She had left her iPad on the charger behind the couch. I knew her passcode. It was 1234. She wasn't a complex person. I unlocked it, intending the factory reset it and mail it to her parents' house. But a notification banner at the top caught my eye. It was from an app one didn't recognize, a secure vault app disguised as a calculator. My heart hammered against my ribs. I guessed the password for the app. 1234 again. It opened. I wasn't prepared for what I found. It wasn't just photos. It was a folder of screenshots and notes titled Exit Strategy. I opened the first note. It was dated 2 months ago, right when she started pushing to move in. It read, target date December. Goal, get and propose or get common law status. Need to stay 6 months for residency claim? Check laws. I scrolled down. Plan B, if he doesn't propose, I need leverage. 1. Get pregnant. Stop pill on August 4th. My blood ran cold. August 4th was 3 weeks ago. But the most damning thing wasn't the baby trap. It was the chat logs of a contact named lawyer friend Mike. I read the logs. Mike had texted her, "You need to get him to hit you, or at least scare you enough to get a protective order. If you get a PO, you can get exclusive possession of the residence even if you aren't on the lease." Her reply made me sick. "He's so calm, though. It's annoying. I'll try to provoke him tonight. I'm going to tell him I'm going to element with those guys he hates. He'll snap." I sat down on the floor, the iPad trembling in my hands. The clubbing, the dress, the "we aren't married" line, it was all a script. She wasn't just a cheater or a party girl. She was a predator. She wanted him to physically stop her so she could call the police and claim abuse, granting her access to my apartment while I rotted in a cell. The guys she was meeting weren't just randoms. She was meeting Mike. He had texted her at 9:30 p.m. saying, "See you at Element. If he kicks you out, come to my place. We'll file the emergency motion in the morning." The realization washed over me. She had played her hand, but she had underestimated my apathy. By packing her bags and remaining nonviolent, I had sidestepped a landmine that would have destroyed my life. But now I was angry. Not the hot, flashing anger of a lover scorned. This was the cold rage of a man who realized he was sleeping next to a viper. She wanted a war. She wanted to use the law. I looked at the iPad. I had everything. Her conspiracy to commit fraud, her admission of false accusations, her plan to entrap me. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to nuke her entire world. I picked up my phone. I didn't text her. I texted her father. Her father was a deacon at their church, a man of rigid, almost suffocating morality, who controlled the purse strings of her entire family. He thought his daughter was a virgin saint living with her roommate. I texted him, "Mr. Last Name, I think you need to see why your daughter is back home. I'm sending you some files. Please check your email." Then I opened my laptop. It was time for the offensive. I spent the next hour curating the evidence. I wasn't just sending screenshots. I was building a case file. I exported the chat logs where she discussed the baby trap and the domestic violence setup with Mike. I included the video file from my living room camera, the one showing me calmly packing her bags while she was gone, proving there was no violence, no shouting match, just a silent, methodical removal of property. I emailed the package to her father, her mother, and for good measure, I CC'd her work email. She worked as a coordinator for a charity foundation that would definitely be interested to know their employee was conspiring to file false police reports and commit paternity fraud. Then I turned my attention to lawyer friend Mike. A quick Google search of his phone number led me to a Michael J. Sterling, a junior associate at a mid-sized family law firm in the city, a guy with a LinkedIn profile full of platitudes about justice. I drafted an email to the managing partners of his firm with the subject line, "Ethics Complaint/Conspiracy to Commit Fraud, Associate Michael Sterling." I attached the correspondence where he advised her to provoke a physical altercation to secure a fraudulent protective order. I told them this constituted conspiracy to commit legal fraud and a gross violation of the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct, and that I would be filing a formal complaint with the State Bar of Texas the next morning. I hit send on both emails. Around 2 p.m. on Sunday, her father called me. His voice was shaking, not with anger at me, but with a deep, crumbling shame. He asked if it was true. I told him every word was true, and the timestamps on the iPad matched the security footage. He admitted she had told him I beat her. I asked him if he saw me touch her in the video, or even raise my voice. He said no. I told him I was sorry it had to end this way. But I wouldn't have my reputation destroyed. He whispered that he understood, and that she wasn't who they thought she was. An hour later, the social media posts disappeared. All of them. The crying video, the accusations, everything. Then came the text from her. You ruined my life. My dad kicked me out. I have nowhere to go. How could you show them that? I didn't reply. I just read it and smiled. But the entitlement runs deep. She wasn't done. She showed up at my apartment complex again that evening. This time, she didn't have a key code, so she waited in the lobby, trying to slip in behind a delivery driver. My neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, called me immediately and told me she was down there looking manic and trying to get into the elevator. I told her not to let her up and that I was calling the police. This time, I called 911. I reported a trespasser who had previously threatened to file false reports against me and was currently attempting to break in. When the police arrived, the dynamic was very different. I went down to the lobby with the iPad in hand. She was arguing with the concierge, screaming. I told the officer she had been trespassed from the property and was harassing me. She spun around, eyes wild, and screamed that I stole her iPad. I lifted the device and asked loudly if she meant the device she left behind, the one containing evidence of her conspiracy with her lawyer to frame me. Her face dropped. She lunged for me. It was the worst move she could have made. She clawed at my chest, ripping my shirt. The officers were on her in seconds. They tackled her to the ground. She was shrieking that I stole her stuff as they cuffed her. The officer told her she was under arrest for assault and criminal trespass. I watched as they marched her out of the lobby, the victim narrative shattering under the weight of her own actions. The cherry on top came the next morning. I received an email from the law firm stating that Mr. Sterling had been placed on immediate administrative leave pending an internal investigation. 2 days later, he was fired. I know this because his profile vanished from the firm's website. I forwarded the chat logs to the state bar. He likely wouldn't practice law in Texas again anytime soon. As for Sarah, she lost her job. The charity foundation didn't take kindly to the optics of their coordinator being arrested for assault and exposed for planning fraud. Her parents, humiliated, offered her a choice: rehab and strict counseling in a facility 3 hours away. Or she was on her own. She chose the facility, not because she wanted to change, but because she had burned every other bridge. The guys from the club ghosted her immediately. Mike, the lawyer, blamed her for ruining his career. She was alone. 6 months have passed since that night. The silence in my apartment is peaceful. I changed the locks, upgraded the security system, and bought a new couch. I did receive one final letter from her, sent from a facility. It wasn't an apology. It was a request for money. She wrote, I know you're mad, but I really need $2,000 to get a fresh start when I get out. We had some good times, right? Don't be a jerk. I framed it. I hung it in the hallway right where her bags used to be. It serves as a reminder: when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time.